having never done a webinar for hundreds of people all over the world before, I think the best plan is just to do it and get into it and talk you through what we've got in store. So if this works, right. So my computer annoyingly is being a bit funny and I can't see my mouse, but other than that, it's going smoothly. So what we're going to do, we're going to do some introductions in a moment, explain who we are, who you're speaking to. We're going to tell explain a little bit of the story of Smartphone Free Childhood so far and how we got to be before you today with 109 and counting participants from all over the world. We're going to talk a little bit about this slightly mad global expansion strategy that we are talking to you about, and why we think it's a good idea. And then we'll put some lights on, actually, that might happen in a little bit. And then we've got some ground rules because we want to talk about some of the technicalities and the ins and outs of this whole idea. There are a few technicalities that we've been figuring out and thinking through in the past few days. And then we're going to go through the stages of like how we've done it in the UK so far. Not that we've sort of completed anything, but like how we've got to where we've got to. And then, because we think that's hopefully going to be really relevant for people all over the world to understand. And then we're going to explain next steps and we'll have a Q&A at the end. So go on to the next slide. So yeah, just for this webinar, because it's a webinar, and you've got to have webinar rules. So I think everyone should be muted. We've tried to set it up so that everyone's muted during the meeting, just because it could be a bit chaotic otherwise. We are, like I said, we're going to take some questions at the end. So if you have a question, then please type it into the chat. When you do so, could you also mention which country you're asking a question from? That'd be really interesting to know. And then I think we can go through a process if we can figure it out of unmuting the people who've asked a few questions. We'll select a few questions and we'll try and unmute you, and then you can ask them to everyone. So we're aiming for this to last about an hour. We haven't actually done a run through of this, so if it's a bit more or less, then that could easily happen. But around an hour, we're going to aim to send a recording of this to everyone, because lots of people obviously around the world are in totally different time zones. It might be the middle of the night, wherever someone wants, whoever's interested in this, it could be a totally inconvenient time. So we're going to try and send it around via email. Also, if you could just type in the chat which country you're from as well, because we've had a huge amount of interest in this from all over the world. It'd be great to know who's live in this call now, because it's just really fascinating. And then just the last thing to say, apologies if things go a little bit wrong. It's a bit scrappy, and like we we don't know where something is, or we lose track because we've never done one of these before, so you'll have to bear with us. So there's a chat. I can't see the chat, Claire. Do you want to, and actually maybe give it a minute, and then once we've got the names of all the countries, then we can share it with everyone. It'd be really great for everyone to hear where everyone else is. But first, before we go into all that sort of agenda, I think we just wanted to put a mind-blown emoji on the screen, because this is a really crazy thing that's going on and continues to go on, and this is one of the many crazy things that's happened to us in the last few months, but arguably the craziest. So since the whole thing kicked off, we've had hundreds of emails from people all over the world. This is literally just a tiny sliver from every continent, maybe barring Antarctica. I'm not sure if I've had any emails from Antarctica, but literally all over the world, people who are really behind what we're trying to do, who believe in the cause that like we do and want to do something similar in their country. So we put out a post on Instagram saying who would be interested in us doing a webinar, and then we set up a form that you guys have all filled in, this thing, which we ask people to fill in, and it automatically populates all the countries where people have signed up to this webinar from. So that I'm going to play that again, but it's really extraordinary, from like Bahrain to France to Spain to Argentina to the UAE to Costa Rica, Brazil, Mozambique, Norway, China, everywhere. So, and then this next slide is my favorite. It works. Oh no, this one. Look at that. So this is a not particularly accurate world map of all the places where people have signed up to this webinar from, which is really quite extraordinary. And what this tells us is that this issue of protecting childhood from social media and smartphones, and trying to do something about the direction that childhood and, well, probably society in general is going, is something that matters to thousands, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of parents all over the world. So it's really quite extraordinary to be in this position talking to you all now, but really inspiring as well. Do you want to put the lights on? It's pretty dark in here. Right, so that is just the world map slide that is quite exciting to see. And then it's even more extraordinary, this whole thing, because it was an accident. You guys might understand some of this story already, and we'll be going into detail each of these steps, trying to make sense of what's happened so that other people can do something similar. But it wasn't intentional. So Daisy and Claire, this is Daisy, my wife. Claire is also somewhere that I don't know if you guys you probably can all see Claire and Jen, can't you? Because they're the and we'll do proper introductions in a second. But Daisy and Claire set up a WhatsApp group. It was initially just the two of them. Daisy posted about it on Instagram. It went crazy viral. Thousands of people joined that WhatsApp group, then set up hundreds of other WhatsApp groups across the UK, all talking about keeping childhood smartphone free. Then the media picked up on it, and it just blew up in the UK, and everyone started talking about it. And then we sort of spent quite a lot of time trying to figure out how to turn this momentum into like real change, and figure out how to actually launch a hopefully proper grown-up campaigning organization off the back of this crazy momentum that's happened. But none of this was expected, and so that's why that previous slide is even more extraordinary. So who we are. So I'll just carry on talking for a moment before I let the real stars of the show, Daisy and Claire, talk about their roles in this madness. So as I mentioned, I'm Joe. I'm Daisy's husband, and this thing sort of kicked off in our kitchen about 3 months ago. And after probably the first week or so, it became obvious there was something really huge going on here. Like the Daisy and Claire's initial group had struck a chord nationally, certainly, and now it looks like globally as well. And so I've been working with them since then to try and figure out how to kind of build this into something bigger than just some viral WhatsApp groups, and turn this momentum into something that's hopefully going to have a real impact for many, many children, and thinking about the strategy and thinking about the tactics that we use to try and turn this crazy viral moment into something that's actually going to have a real impact. So yeah, been working very, very closely with Daisy and Claire on this over the last few months. Daisy, you want to do your thing?
Hi everyone, I'm Daisy. Claire and I are very old friends, and long been discussing our concern about giving our kids smartphones. So we decided to set up the group together. I'm a journalist normally before this happened, and yeah, now working on this full time with Claire and Joe, trying to turn all that initial momentum that we've had into something that makes real change here in Britain and maybe the world.
Claire?
Thank you. Hello, hope you can hear me. Hello, I'm Claire. Daisy and I are really old friends. We've been worried about this issue for quite a long time. And yeah, so we thought we'd just try something. We had no idea what was going to happen. We thought it was just going to be the two of us. And we've got daughters coming up to the age where actually in the UK it's quite normal to get a smartphone, and we just felt like there's something really not right about that. And I think we felt that we know there's just something not quite right with kids and teenagers in the UK at the moment, and I think globally as well. We can see it all around us, can't we? We kind of all know that actually we need to do something. And I think, if anything, in the last 2 months, what I've learned is that actually parents coming together has such an incredible and actually quite moving power to it. It's just blown us away, and even more exciting now that other people are doing it across the globe. We really think that 2024 is the tipping point. This is the year that we can change things. So it's just so exciting to see you all. Lovely to have you. And yeah, thank you.
So that's the three of us. And then I think really important to say, like, that, we've obviously been trying to guide this thing that's got a life of its own. But what's been most amazing, which as Claire alluded to, is all the people that have sort of put their hand up and said, I want to help with this. I want to support this. I believe in this as well. I can see that there's a problem here and I want to change things in my community, in my school, in my country. So yeah, we've been sort of backed up by this incredible army of volunteers, people with shiny, glittering CVs from across all sorts of sectors, whether it's teachers, education specialists, campaigners, policy experts, tech people, advocacy people, people in business, and many, many more. And loads of people have said, yeah, we want to get involved in this and help with this, which has just been an extraordinary thing to sort of bear witness to and be part of. And one of those people is Jen, who is one of the other co-hosts in this call. Jen is, we were debating what to name her role, how to describe her role. We've gone with the reluctant WhatsApp warrior, which probably doesn't mean much to anyone apart from us, but that's really to say that Jen has been the kind of technical wizard that turned this chaotic, hundreds of chaotic WhatsApp groups into something that makes sense. And so she's going to be taking a little bit of this webinar in 10, 20 minutes or so, just explaining some of the technicalities about how she's done it, we've done it, how we sort of tried to create some structure into the whole thing. So yeah, Jen is one of many amazing volunteers that are part of this. And yeah, the even bigger thing is that, yes, we've had some amazing volunteers who have been doing some important stuff for us, but what's really been incredible, like Claire said, is that it's just uncorked this extraordinary tidal wave of parental support and love. So many people have said, I can't believe that, I'm so happy that you guys are doing this, that you're working on this, you're trying to change this. I believe in this too. My prayers have been answered. That's just been a message that we've heard time and time again. So that's really the strength of this thing. That's what's driving this forward. That's what's making changes in schools already in the UK and communities already in the UK. And it's what's got the government's attention in this country as well. It really is a story of people power, which is amazing to kind of be part of and to help try and shepherd, I suppose. And so yeah, the like key thing here really is that this is like the solution to this problem is collective action. We've all kind of found ourselves in this position whereby very few parents actually want to give their 10, 11, 12-year-olds unrestricted access to the internet and social media in their pockets at all times. But because all their friends have got exactly that, then they've found themselves in this impossible position. So the only way to solve that, well, there are two ways. One is legislative change from governments from on high. And, we are thinking about that in the UK and doing what we can to sort of encourage that. But that's a much, much more complicated process. But what we can all do is take action in our communities and decide that we're not going to give our children's phones and our friends and agree with fellow parents and people in our communities not to do the same. And that really is going to have an impact. What's the stat about the 25%? I never quite get this right.
It's a tipping point. If 25% of a group do something, then the social norm changes very quickly. So if you can get 25% of your child's class to agree not to get a phone, then suddenly the social norm about when people get phones will get supercharged to change and go older.
So yeah, it doesn't seem, when you put it like that, it doesn't seem like that big a deal. Just a quarter of a class changes everything, basically. So we do have a lot of power to make change. So going global, let's explain some of our thinking about this. It's slightly crazy idea to try and spread this around the globe when there's literally 3 of us. But let's see what we can do. So yeah, I suppose the main message here is that we don't want to hold this tight. This isn't our thing. This is like a thing for parents everywhere. We want this to have to spread far and wide. We want these conversations to be happening in classrooms, in kitchens all around the world, because it's obvious from the strength of support that we've had from all around the world that this is not just an issue that's confined to these shores. It's a global issue. It's something that matters to millions of parents. These trends are global, they're universal, and so it would be amazing if we can help stoke these conversations globally. That's the reason behind us having this session today. So we want to try and explain how we've done this in the UK and the kind of tips and tricks and luck that have led to this growth over here. So you can try and do something similar wherever you are. But important to say, there are lots of, sort of cultural, technical, and systemic factors that mean that what we've done here might not be right for wherever you are. This is just how we've done it. Please adapt it to how you see fit. This is not, we don't have hard and fast rules. Like there was no plan. We weren't following a blueprint. Please don't see this as like the exact thing to do or the exact way to go. It might be totally different where you are. Every country is totally different. And we see this as inspiration rather than strict guidance. So it's really annoying. I'm trying to present and there's all these things popping up, meaning I can't actually read the slides, but I'll see what I can do. So there are 5 stages. So the first one, we're going to take you through these in detail in a little bit. So the first one is preparation, like planning for trying to start groups in your country. The second one is the big one that's almost impossible to predict. We certainly can't promise that, which is going viral. The third one is then figuring out how to manage these communities in your country, these WhatsApp communities. The fourth one is creating resources for people who want help with this stuff. And the fifth one is pushing for change, I think, even though it's hidden behind a load of faces on the right hand of my screen, but I think that's what I put. So we're going to go through all of those in detail as we go through this. However, as I mentioned, there are some ground rules. It's not quite as simple as just saying, go for it and copy us. We've got to think about this carefully. So really important thing to say here is that anyone who starts a WhatsApp group in their country will be starting a self-organizing, self-governing group. It's going to be up to you guys to figure out how to manage it. It's going to be up to you guys to figure out how to organize between yourselves. We don't have the time, capacity, or knowledge of of your countries to be able to support in this. It's literally we're just hopefully inspiring people to do something similar in their countries. That's our thinking, but it will be fully self-organizing and fully self-governed. Yeah, unfortunately, we're not actually going to be able to manage queries. We're not going to, as we know, as we've been going through this process, there's been so many technical things that have come up and how do we do this? How do we figure that out? Or strategic things that have come up. We've had to work it out on the fly and just figure it out and find amazing people like Jen to figure it out for us. And yeah, we're not going to be able to sort of hold anyone's hand in doing this. This is, as I said, it's purely intended as inspiration rather than we're going to be giving you like a really strict or sophisticated toolkit on how to do it. So this is also a really, really important one. So and again, we've been discussing this with lawyers just to protect ourselves. So you can use a Smartphone Free Childhood name in WhatsApp groups, and people are already doing that. There's groups that have popped up all over the world. So this is hopefully going to help kind of streamline some of those groups. But you can't use our brand anywhere else. So you can't create Smartphone Free Childhood local websites. You can't create Smartphone Free Childhood local social channels. And we realize that for some people, that might not be what you want to do. You might want to actually go full force at this and try and run your own campaigns in your own countries. So in the future we might consider licensing the brand. It wouldn't be it's not a paid thing, it'd be a free thing. It's just the legal risk at the moment means that we're not able to do that. We might consider licensing in the future. Let's say a group in New Zealand really takes off. And it's clear that you really, really want to build this into a campaigning brand. That might be a conversation we could have, but for now we're not able to do that. That's for me to. No. And so yeah, if you do want to run a full campaign, you're going to have to come up with your own name, your own approach. You can copy everything we've done, take our resources, translate them. It's all open sourced on that front, but you'd have to run that under your own steam, your own name. So assuming the WhatsApp groups, people want to run with the WhatsApp group concept, what we intend to do is link to each independent country group from a global page on our website. So it'll be smartphonefreechildhood.com/global. It's actually still .co.uk, but we're working on changing that. It will be .com. And there'll be a global page. And from that page, there'll be a list of countries who've started their own groups. And we will we'll explain how to get the links from you guys. But essentially, you guys will send whoever's organising the one single Smartphone Free Childhood WhatsApp groups or WhatsApp group in their country will send us the link to your groups, and we'll put on our website. So people will have an access point from our website to access your groups, but they will be, as I said, independent and self-governed. As I briefly touched on as well, we are happy for anyone to use, adapt, or translate any of the resources on our website for your own groups. If you want to create PDF documents to share around in your groups, whatever that may be, we are very happy for people to use what we've created so far. It's not perfect, but it will hopefully, again, act as inspiration for you guys to do your own things. So technically what's going to happen is after this webinar, we're going to connect you with everyone else from your country by email. If you said yes when we added that tick box in the sign up form, then there are some countries that signed up which has only got 1 or 2 people, and there are some of the bigger countries that might have 50 or 60 people. So we're just going to send one email to everyone in that country who's interested in setting up a Smartphone Free Childhood group, and then it's over to you to decide how to take it forward. We can't handhold and manage that process. It's just going to be up to you guys to figure out how best to do it. And there are some proper legal terms and conditions that we've mapped out. Again, you guys will send this to everyone in the email as well, so you've got it on file. But this is just the sort of boring but necessary stuff to say. Essentially, we're giving you by starting a WhatsApp, let's say Smartphone Free Childhood Canada group, you are agreeing to these terms and conditions, which we are able to withdraw. You are not allowed to use our brand, as we said, and you have to apply to all the rules, regulations that you'd expect to in your own countries. You have to comply with relevant law and regulations and jurisdiction in your jurisdiction. All this kind of stuff we will share, but this is just to protect ourselves. Again, really critical message that these will be self-governing groups that you will be managing. So that's the boring stuff out of the way. Let's go through the process that we went through or accidentally landed upon to get to where we've got to. The first bit is preparation. And I suppose in our case, certainly in Daisy and Claire's case, there was basically none of this. So you guys are in a much better position already because you're thinking about doing this rather than it just happening. So I suppose the things to think about are, firstly, how do you gather a group of people in your country who are passionate about this issue? And we're hoping to help you guys do that through connecting everyone and via email who's signed up to this webinar. Then obviously you have to think about who's actually got the time and energy to commit to this thing and building this. There is a lot of work that's gone into what we've done. And if it does explode in your country, there will certainly be a lot of work for you guys to manage as well. A practical thing is who might have a social following in amongst the parents, sort of presuming it'll be parents who want to start these groups, just to try and get that initial viral momentum going and get people attracted to these groups. Then technically, who's going to set up and manage the WhatsApp group or groups? How are you going to coordinate it locally, and what skills and networks are you going to need or going to be most advantageous to try and get this going in your country? So those are just the kind of things to think about. Like I said, we didn't have any of those answers. It just happened, but worth thinking about those before pressing the button in your country. This next one, this is the sort of the secret sauce, which is impossible to replicate, but this is what happened here. So Daisy posted this post on Instagram. It's a picture of our kids, and it was really a sort of heartfelt tale of why you were so worried about this. Do you want to talk a little bit about this post?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I I don't normally post about anything like this. I normally post about climate, but I decided to do one about how I didn't want to get my 8-year-old daughter a smartphone. And I had about 1,000 followers at the time. And I kind of made it quite rousing. I'd said, there's a group in Spain, they've started a group and it's gone really well. And, a town in Ireland has got together and they've banned smartphones across the whole town. We can do this. Why don't we do this? And here's, I've started a WhatsApp group with my friend and let me know if you want to join. And it obviously struck a chord, and it just it got shared more than anything I've ever posted by about 10,000 times. And lots of people started joining the group. So I guess it just struck a chord. And I think it seems to be that parents across the world are feeling like this. So I feel like it's very possible for that to happen in other countries as well.
Yeah, so that it might not go quite as crazy viral as Daisy's posted, but like Daisy said, the strength of feeling that we've experienced as a result of working on this suggests to us all that anyone trying to do this in their country will probably get lots of people who are interested in this as well.
Can I just add something in there, Joe?
Yeah.
I think what Daisy did in her post that was really powerful was that it was not scaremongering. There was like a positive future. There was something aspirational and exciting about it as well. And I think that is the thing to kind of capture, because it can very easily sink into this terrible negative scaremongering thing. But it's like about painting a positive future for our children. And I think that's also what's kind of really helped in the messaging. So just wanted to add that in.
Yeah, very important point. And we've got a bit more about that in a little while as well. But yeah, definitely kind of making it feel like an inspiring, hopeful story of people coming together and the possibility of change rather than a terrifying, frightening story of what might go wrong. So yeah, so obviously, again, you guys have the advantage that there might be 10, 20 of you trying to do this, and you can all post on your social channels and you can all tell your friends and try and get this thing going. And then another thing that we've realized is that the media are really interested in the story. So even if you had a WhatsApp group with 500 people in, or a few hundred people in, I imagine like local media would be interested in that, and that will get more people interested, and maybe the national media will be interested in it as well. So yeah, contact local media, get people, tell people about it, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people who want to write about this as well. So that's the sort of the big unknown. The known is how to manage the communities. Well, Jen knows how to do it anyway. So just explaining a little bit of that journey, I suppose, going from that initial viral craziness to lots of well-managed, centrally managed WhatsApp groups, or centrally organized WhatsApp groups, I suppose. The thinking behind that is that, look, it's great having one or two. I think there was two main central nationwide WhatsApp groups in the UK that were both filled up of 1,000 or so people. That's great, and those groups are still going. People are sharing resources, solidarity, stories in those WhatsApp groups. But the whole point of this is to try and solve the collective action problem, and therefore that's only going to happen at a hyper local level, and that's going to happen on the ground in your communities and probably at your school gates. And one of the things in the UK that we realise is that every single school in the UK manages, all the parents sort of manage their communications about PE kits and changes of schedule and school sports days through WhatsApp. And so it made a lot of sense to try and set up school WhatsApp groups specifically about smartphone-free childhood. So that was the idea, was to go from this really big national conversation right down to local conversations in towns and villages across the country. So yeah, from national WhatsApp group into these hyper-local WhatsApp groups. And as you can imagine, this is where it gets a little complicated. So this is where, initially it went really crazy and it was really difficult to govern. And Daisy and Claire were sort of admins in about, hundreds and hundreds of WhatsApp groups, and they're all named different things and they're all structured in different ways. And it was really, really chaotic. So that's when Jen sort of stepped into the fray and started really thinking about how to manage this from a technical perspective. And I'm going to hand over the mic to Jen to explain some of this stuff.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, as Joe's already alluded to, it was, so I probably joined the original WhatsApp group, I think, within a day or two of Daisy's original Instagram post. So it was mind-blowing how quickly the groups are just filling up. I mean, I wasn't previously aware of the fact that WhatsApp even had member limits, because who would be? And yeah, it was that kind of sudden panicked need to try and expand and grow. So it was really clear that an organized approach to the network was going to be what was needed. So my OCD started tingling, and I like things neat and structured. So in the interest of making it a really clear route to connecting people locally. So as Joe called out, it's that kind of hyper local goal. so that people can really connect with other people in their area, so we can reach that tipping point and all that good stuff that's already been talked about. We needed it to be easy for people to get to those places, obviously easy to manage as well, and to just make sure that there was a nice streamlined process for making sure that all of the messaging was quite consistent, hence the pyramid. So Joe, if you could move on, please.
Sorry, yeah.
So we know that finding a group of parents in your child's peer group is that sweet spot. If you can get that solidarity so that two parents can turn around and say, well, we know my child's not the only one without a phone, that eliminates the peer pressure, and that's kind of the pat on the back moment. So we really wanted to get that kind of hyper local school group. So to make that easier, we've got regional communities, and then within those communities, individuals can create those hyper local school groups and start to connect with other parents in their child's school. So then the next level up from that is, and this is a very much a UK specific approach, but the next level up is the WhatsApp communities. So we created a community for every county in the UK. That was kind of where I came in. We had a multitude of like groups that covered regions, groups for cities, groups for kind of smaller towns, groups for kind of countries, like Scotland had its own group. So to take that consistent approach, it basically took me, I think, a day or so to create an individual community for every single county across the UK, put it in a nice streamlined list. And that just meant that it was an obvious place for people to go and say, right, that's where I live, that's my county. I joined that community, and then in that community, you can see all of those nice subgroups underneath. Ideally, your child's school is already there, and there's already lots of parents in the same boat. But that was that kind of plan. But above the community level, none of that would work if we didn't have the grassroots leader group. So this is another layer that kind of sits on top. It's a separate group where all of the administrators and moderators and leaders for those individual county groups sit together. The reason why that's so important, it's not just the moderation piece. Obviously, when you've got WhatsApp groups or any kind of channel where you've got multiple people coming together, moderation is a very important part of it. But ultimately, it's those leaders that really generate the conversation. They do an awful lot of caretaking. They bring all of the kind of case studies and positive experiences and negative experience back to that grassroots leaders group, which then can be shared out across the entire network. So although this is very much a pyramid, it's kind of more of a, I suppose, a tree network with these various different branches. So it's that kind of consistent messaging down throughout. Nobody misses out on anything. There's oversight across all the groups. And when I say oversight, I don't mean control. It's not a case where, you know, Daisy, Claire and Joe manage things with an iron fist. But the whole benefit of this network is that it's the connection. So each group is connected to another one. Everyone can see what's happening. There's a consistent flow of information and updates down around campaigns. Then there's also crowdsourcing of information back up again. So it's that real opportunity to share the positive experiences, things that worked, as I said, things that didn't work. But that's the kind of sweet spot. And I think that's where the beauty of this movement has really come in. And then capping that all off, there's the group that started it all, that maxed out WhatsApp limits, I think, within 48 hours, but it's still going strong. It's still full. There's lots of really good information that's being drummed up and being shared down throughout the entire community. There are other groups as well, and I'm sure Joe and Daisy will get to that later on. So there's other kind of little advocacy pieces and just kind of lots of different things that are going on across the campaign. But that's kind of in a nutshell how the WhatsApp network looks. Now, within those individual groups, there's slight differences. So if you take, for example, the South West London group as a case study, South West London is an area within London, so it's not even like it's the entirety of London, and it's so busy that we've had to split that into 3 sections. Essentially, there were so many primary and secondary schools in the area that we maxed out group limits. So we had too many subgroups within one community. So we then had to split that out. So we've got these 3 different alphabetical groups. So it all starts to get nice and complex very, very quickly. But that focus was very much on finding other parents in individual schools, building that solidarity out, and it's done fantastic. We've had incredible case studies and positive experiences with engagements with the schools coming out of that particular community. Then on the flip side, you've got Wales, which is rather than setting up a community for the individual counties within Wales as a country, we just have Wales as a country community. And instead of setting up individual primary school subgroups within their community, they've opted to go for regions. So, for example, we've got Cardiff being the entire city of Cardiff. Then we've got North Wales as a regional chunk within it. And it just works better for that community. It's a smaller population size, they're smaller areas, so they can engage with each other across multiple schools within that area, so they can take that more targeted approach to the various different head teachers and principals in their entire community. So it very much does work differently dependent on the communities and the counties themselves. And I think that's quite key. We've discovered that as things have come on, and obviously being in a position where I'm across all of the communities, I get to see a lot of the differences in how people set them up. So obviously there's going to be those same differences in the individual country groups. And I think some of the things to consider when you're deciding how to set things up is stuff like population size. WhatsApp as a channel has very well detailed limits on member sizes. If WhatsApp isn't the channel of choice in your country, if there's a better option, that's great, but do have a think about those kind of size limits when you're talking about setting up groups, because it's a bit of a headache when you're trying to split things out, as we've had to do in 4 separate areas so far. Also the volume of communities. So again, if WhatsApp is the channel of choice, it wasn't really designed to have a single administrator for multiple communities. So, I mean, as it is, I think we've got hundreds. Going much further beyond that starts to become a bit of a headache. So it's that kind of a consideration there as well. And also just kind of general logistics of data management and things like that. So keeping on track of the analytics, obviously you want to know how many people are joining the community. So there's a lot to get your head around. Moving on from WhatsApp as a channel, it's great that we've got this community, and it's really great that we've set up all of these different county groups, so it's easy to find them. But unless you actually have somewhere for people to go to find which county community they need to be in, things are obviously going to get a bit complex, and that's where Linktree comes in. So if you're not aware of Linktree, it's very, very basic website that literally just hosts a list of links. So that was kind of like the option that we went with. So our Linktree, well, we have a couple of them, but our Linktree contains a link to every single group that's been created. We've put them in alphabetical order. It's really easy to find. It's very straightforward. It's very easy to use. Requires very little management, but it is integral to making sure that people can find where they need to go and actually make that network work. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of Linktree in a nutshell as well. So
amazing. Thank you, Jen. And you know, like I said, we're going to be fielding a few questions at the end of this. So if you've got any technical ones, then Jen might this is your one and only moment to tap into the wisdom of the WhatsApp wizard. But anyway, the other thing to just to mention, I suppose, is that once you've got these groups up and running, there's obviously kind of, I suppose, community management of those groups. And so what we've been trying to do is to try and keep all those groups up to date with things that are going on at a national level via announcements to those regional communities that then send them out and filter them out through their regional groups, telling people what's going on in the movement, success stories, case studies, any developments, any inspirational links and ideas. And then, you know, that central regional leaders groups pass on those messages to their local regions. And yeah, it's just really around like trying to keep some momentum in some of the groups, you know, in the sort of local level groups. You know, some of the county level groups are super active, and some of them there's not that much going on. So actually, the people need a bit of a G up and some ideas and inspiration, or some positive stories and case studies about things that are going on elsewhere in the country. And we found that WhatsApp's a really great way of doing that as well. There's also some rules. So, you know, obviously managing these kind of somewhat chaotic WhatsApp groups, there's, you know, these are spaces where lots of people are coming together, lots of people will have different opinions and ideas. And so we've had to set some ground rules. These community group rules, again, these are things that we can share with you all. We'll share the sort of terms and conditions and the community group rules that when we introduce you all via email. But yeah, it's pretty obvious stuff around the kind of principles of communication in these groups. And it hasn't happened much, but there's been 1 or 2 times where someone's come on, I don't know, spreading some conspiracy theories or otherwise not very helpful content, and we've had to just unceremoniously remove them from the groups. But that's the kind of thing that you'd imagine would probably happen in any large internet community. So yeah, there's a little word on sort of communications and messaging, and I know that it's not, as we mentioned, you know, we're if you are going to use this smartphone for each other name in WhatsApp groups, then you're not going to be doing websites and brand communications in the way that we are. But still, the overall tone of the storytelling that you do, even on WhatsApp, is important. And I think this is just something we wanted to explain. So right from the beginning, we realized that this is actually a really emotive issue. You know, particularly there's lots of, you know, it seems like a message, like the whole story that we're trying to tell about, you know, protecting children from the sort of distractions and the dangers of life on the smartphone is really emotive. You know, you are dealing with people's own parenting choices, and particularly we found that parents of younger children who haven't yet been confronted with this issue find it's it's an easier story an easier message to communicate. Whereas a lot of parents with older children have already given their children smartphones, and we really don't want to be judging parents for their choices. We know that risks creating division, and that's actually could be a counterproductive thing overall. So we really want this to be a place for an open conversation and not a space of judgment. And we've worked really hard to try and balance that in our communications. The big thing for us is that this isn't a story of parents making bad decisions. Like, everyone wants to do the best for their children, whether they've given them a smartphone or not, whether their children are on social media or not. It's actually that parents are being put in an impossible position by the tech companies and by the structures of societies that have evolved so quickly. And so it's not a story of individual failure. It's actually a story of structural failure, which is something that's much more uniting. It's much more universal. It's something that you know, it's much easier for parents to get behind. So that's a critical thing in our whole smartphone free childhood movement, is that we believe that, and I think there's a bit more on the next slide. So yeah, we believe that parents have been put in an impossible position. We either give our children access to this product that opens the door to all sorts of awful things that we know about, or we risk alienating them from their peers at this crucial stage of development. So it's a lose-lose. It's a lose-lose for parents. It's a lose-lose for children, and ultimately for society. So that's really the thing that underpins everything that we're doing, is that, you know, the regulation isn't in place. It hasn't caught up with the technology. And so we're having to take matters into our own hands. So that is just, you know, it's not, it may be slightly tangential from this conversation, but it's also really critical to how we're talking about this subject in everything we do. And then, yeah, in terms of, you know, something that Claire touched upon earlier, this is also an important messaging strategy and tone of this movement that we're trying to build, is that whilst the topics that we're discussing are often very serious, this is really about bringing people together to create positive change, all in the name of parental love. Like, we all want to do the best for our children. We all want to create better childhoods for them and you know, and our friends' children and future generations. And actually, thousands and thousands of parents have come together to say, yeah, we believe in this as well. So that's an incredible story of parental love, parental power, and it's about communicating that in a way that is hopeful for people, and people want to be part of, and not just terrifying people with all the scariest statistics that sometimes are useful in communicating this stuff. But I think that's partly why right from that first post, like Claire mentioned, Daisy's first post was in that vein, and we've tried to carry that through with everything else that we've done as well. Right, so what's the time, by the way? I'm just going to note. Okay, yeah, right. It's going to overrun a little bit. I'll try and crack through this stuff quite quickly. So, creating resources. So this is something that we've started doing quite a lot of. You know, we realized that parents have a lot of questions, like, and we didn't have the answers, and lots of people have sort of been helping us figure out the answers to some of these questions. But if you do start groups in your country, you'll probably find quite quickly that parents want answers to this stuff. They want to know what the best alternatives are out there. They want to know how to create pacts in their schools. They need guidance and help. So we've been working, you know, ourselves and with other volunteers and other, you know, people have fed into this stuff on a bunch of resources. Again, like we said, you guys can happy to utilize this stuff, link to this stuff, you know, edit this stuff, whatever you want to do with it that works for your countries. This is just an example of some of the things that we've been working on. So how to talk to other parents about this, which speaks to some of the things that we were just discussing around trying to make this an inclusive message that's non-judgmental. Worth looking at that on our site. Template letters to primary school heads and secondary school heads. You know, we know that schools are going to play a vital role in this conversation and creating the change that we all want to happen. And so we've done a lot of thinking about how to engage teachers in this message as well. And there are some templates on our site. Alternatives. This is an example of the alternatives page that we've pulled together. It's not totally comprehensive and it's obviously very UK specific. But if you're not going to give your child a smartphone, one of the first questions that people ask us is, okay, what do I do then? Do I give them a flip phone? Do I give them a watch? Do I put an AirTag in their bag? And there are some really good solutions out there. They're not perfect, but worth looking at that. And a lot of people will be asking for that kind of content. And just something we just released today. This is a much more comprehensive document. This put together by a group of school leaders that are part of the movement and have a lot of experience in this stuff, which is a really comprehensive guide to go out to primary school leaders and secondary school leaders, like outlining the evidence around like some of the harms that smartphones can do in schools. And again, you're welcome to look at that and borrow as much as is useful for you for your country. Some of the evidence that we link to is going to be global. And then the sort of most significant piece of content probably that we've put out is this parent pack document. And this is something that I'm sure lots of you will be interested in. I've only briefly seen a couple of questions in the chat because I can't see it on my screen here, but I know there are already some questions about this. But this is really the sharp end of the collective action point that we've been discussing, is how can you go through a process that makes it likely for other parents in your school to agree not to give your children smartphones. We won't go into this in loads and loads of detail now, but we have got a detailed guide on our site about how best to do that. I don't know if Daisy, you want to just quickly outline what that looks like?
Yeah, so it's basically a really it's our main tool to enable parents to get together hyperlocally in their schools and find other parents and make a pact together not to get phones. It's really, really lo-fi. It's just a really kind of detailed step-by-step guide to handhold people through this process in their schools, with all the communications that they might want to send out to all the other people in the school, and a survey which you can send to your whole school. Just you make it yourself on Google Forms to find out what the kind of smartphone picture is in your school currently. And then the final step is to make a pact, which you do also just on Google Forms. So it's people do it themselves. We're not there's no interaction with us on it. They have this guide and they can follow it and make all the resources on Google themselves. But basically it's just a way to get that conversation started in your school and to stop people from sleepwalking into getting a phone because they haven't had a conversation with anyone else about it, and everyone else has started to do it, so they do it too. So that's the idea. But I think it's constantly evolving, and people are trying out different ways of using it in different regions around the country at the minute.
Also worth saying, this was adapted from some amazing work that some parents had already been doing before we started, and have been trying to do this on their own, and we kind of took their documents and built on them and adapted them, and other people have been adapting our documents, and so you can do the same for whatever works wherever you are. Oh yeah, this is an interesting one as well. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so one of the Bristol group, we've just heard that it's really gone supercharged in Bristol, which is a city in the southwest of England. they had a really great leader in their region who organised a talk for the whole of her Bristol community, and lots of schools signed up, and quite a few 100 people came, and that for some reason has really made it kicked off a lot of pacts in Bristol. Over 100 schools in the city have now signed up and made pacts, and 1,000 parents have done it. And she's managed to kick off a bit of a kind of sense of competition between schools there by reporting each week how many schools and parents have signed pacts. So we're trying to now get that kicked off in different cities around and regions around Britain.
This was actually a really good case study that went out in our announcements as well across the entire community. And since then, it's created quite a bit of competition amongst other counties where people are suddenly getting buoyed up to try and follow suit. So just goes to show how well the network works.
Can I just add something on that? I think the thing that's really worked in Bristol is that it's not school level, but it's not massive county level. It's within a kind of cluster of schools. So that natural momentum is built really quickly. So I think kind of using that model, whether it's in a town or a city, should hopefully work really well. Because obviously you want to do it in your own schools as well, but if there's other schools around all talking to each other and even competing with each other a little bit, that is exactly what you want to be doing. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, there's also this, again, we're sort of running out of time, so we're going to whiz through this, but a lot of people ask about getting talk. Is there anyone that can do a talk in my school that can come and like talk to maybe skeptical parents or parents that are just worried about this? And we've got a sort of a small network of speakers that we put on our website. It's a bit of an out-of-date page actually, but there are, we're working with an amazing GP who is also from Bristol actually, who is going to do some talks with us in different county groups all over the UK. But finding expert voices, particularly clinicians who've got experience of some of the harms that they're seeing day in, day out, we've found to be a really powerful voice. And so, yeah, there may be in your local areas some experts who might be able to run talks or webinars or whatever it may be. And then this last thing, again, this isn't really super relevant to this conversation, but we thought it just might be interesting to you guys because lots of people will be asking questions about what we've been up to. And like we said, if this is something that you really want to take on and go for, then for the moment, it's not going to be able to be done under the Smartphone Free Childhood brand and name, just because we have to protect ourselves legally. But we've been doing a lot of work, as well as like the WhatsApp groups and trying to manage the communities, trying to create real change at a political level, and really try and build this conversation nationally and like tonight globally. So that's involved a whole load of stuff, like figuring out what our like goals and ambitions and vision and approaches, thinking about our brand, our messaging, our design, thinking about the volunteers, who's helping us, who's supporting, like this different sort of structures of support. I think Claire mentioned, or Jen mentioned, we've developed some working groups of all these brilliant people that have said that they want to help us. We've got political experts in one working group. We've got school leaders in another working group. These are all on WhatsApp, separate WhatsApp groups, and we have our own kind of comms channels with them as well. They've helped with some of the our advocacy work. They've helped with some of our schools guidance as well. We've been doing loads of press and PR work. Some of that's happened naturally. Some of it we're trying to curate ourselves. Obviously, there's lots of content creation that we've been doing, trying to build this story on social media and bring people into the movement. Thinking about, there's also partnerships. Lots of really amazing charities and organizations who said they want to work with us. And as well, there's this sort of legal and operations and how we actually set this up legally, which we've been working on, and fundraising. So we're also exploring fundraising options to be able to really grow this into something hopefully really, really impactful. And this is just one of the models that I think is interesting for people to understand, and that and relevant to what hopefully some of you guys will do as well. And that really the main goal for the main sort of approach for us is to bring as many people as possible into this conversation. We've realized through doing this work that you're really pushing, as Jonathan Haidt has said to us, like you're pushing on open doors. Not very few parents really want this kind of childhood or this kind of future for their children or for society. So when you start talking about this stuff, loads of people nod and agree. So we just want to bring more and more people into that conversation through the work that we're doing to raise the profile of the issue. Once people are in our communities, we want to involve them and engage them and give them tools and support and guidance and answer the questions that they've all been asking, so that they can actually have impact on the ground wherever they are. And then the third one is if we do both of those things, then the government are going to listen, and they're going to think, actually, we need to listen to these groups of parents who are really, really worried about this. And we don't know if that's going to be a story that will be able to be replicated all over the world, but who knows? Maybe it will. If there really are hundreds of thousands of millions of parents all over the world talking about this stuff, then things will change, which is really, really exciting. So, what time is it now? It's 9:30, which is sort of was the end. But you know, if anyone wants to stay, let's do 10 minutes of Q&A. So we're gonna do Q&A now, and then after that, we will send the introductory emails to all the different people from the same countries, whoever's opted into that. If anyone's on this call now who hasn't filled in the tally form where we captured your emails, please do that. I'm trying to think. I haven't got it to hand now, but it's on our. Where is it? It's on our Instagram. So if you find it on our Instagram channel on the post about this, and yeah, that's where if you're on this call somehow and you've got the Zoom link without signing up to that, the best way to ensure that you get copied in on any relevant emails is to sign up to that tally form. We'll keep it open for another few days after this, so that anyone who hasn't filled it in yet will also get the emails. And then really it's going to be over to you guys to see what happens in your country, and you know, as we discussed earlier, to self-organize and figure out what the best approach is in your country if you do want to start these groups. Right, I think that is that. We're done, aren't we? Okay, guys. Well, look, that's been fun and surreal, and it's really nice to see you all in thumbnail format. And I haven't really been kept an eye on the chat at all, but I know there's people from Argentina, on Australia, and even further afield on it. So thank you all for joining. We will release the recording of this in due course, and we'll send those resources and be as clear as possible with the assets and the links that we share with you all. And we wish you best of luck.
Thank you for coming.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Good luck. Take care.